Okay, everyone, in this presentation, I will explain my personal philosophy of education. My perception about teaching. First of all, my perception about teaching is one of the main tasks of a teacher. Because I'm a teacher, so it means that teaching is one of the main tasks for me. For me, teaching means that I give something useful for everything that I taught. Because if I can't give something useful, then why should I teach it? I teach mathematics as my subject in the school. Teaching. Why do you teach your subject? I love to teach mathematics because first, I like to see number. Second, because of it, so I major in it in college. And because I already love it, then I have to understand it. And because I understand it, I can teach it to my student. What are your goals in teaching your subject? My goal is I want to change people's perception that mathematics is difficult, but actually mathematics is fun, especially for my student. What is your assessment of teaching? For me, student evaluation are the most commonly used method of assessing my teaching. Although they do not reflect my expertise with regard to content, they provide feedback on how well I communicating what I know. What is the purpose of teaching for you? My goal in teaching is not just to provide information or things that are useful for my students, but also to develop their character in school is one of my goals in teaching. Why? Because only character will we carry until we arrive in heaven. For example, in this corona pandemic, I have a little more expertise in the field of operating an online learning system, and I teach one by one my colleagues at school in the form of small seminar so that they can use the system and are helped in their work. Perception about learning. What does learning mean to you? In my perception, learning is a process of gaining new knowledge that was never known, or it means from the unknowing to knowing. How will you ensure that learning takes place in your class? The way I ensure that learning takes place is from the mutual interaction between me and my students, because without interaction, there is no ongoing learning process. How will you facilitate learning? The way I facilitate the learning process is by preparing material, preparing techniques, preparing the tools needed first to prepare myself to be ready in the learning process. How will you evaluate learners assess their learning? My way of evaluating me is by how much I understand the material that I provide and what my students can take from the lesson that I give them. The more they get, the better the value of the learning. What is your view of inclusive learning? In my opinion, special needs classes are special classes because they require special learning with different learning techniques according to the abilities of each student compared to other regular classes. Interestingly, in special needs class, learning is focused on what student can do and directed more to the specific focus, or it means to their interests of different students. For example, if ordinary learning, one class can contain 30 students in regular class. Another case with special needs classes where students do not reach 10 people because they have to focus on each student. Goals for a learner. What is your view of the learner? According to my view, learner is someone who is learning about something useful. I think the meaning of learner is as same as a student, which means the status obtained by someone if he or she goes to school or is attending an educational institution. How will you support them? I will support them by educating them correctly, both with science and educating them in their character. What skill or knowledge would you like your student to gain from your class? I hope my students get all the knowledge that I provide both about mathematics and character education that I provide and can apply it in their life in the future. How will you motivate your class? For sure, to motivate my student, I have to make my student like me first. Because if they don't like me, then whatever I say will not be received by them properly. What are your goals? My goal to be an educator is definitely to be able to make all my students successful both in the world and in heaven. I also want to hone myself deeper in the field of education so that whatever I do for my students are all beneficial to them. How are you going to achieve this goal? My way to get my goals, the first, I have to pray. The second is trying to hone myself better by continuing my studies. And finally, I will leave everything in God's hand. This is the end of my explanation about my personal philosophy of education. Thank you and may God bless.